and he just started ecstatically dancing. And, I was thinking, oh, that's nice, the beginning of Mangal Arti, but he probably won't keep it up. But he did. The whole Arti, he was just ecstatically dancing. And pretty soon everybody was just, running back and forth through the temple room. And he just really was so contagious and such a wonderful dancer. And this is another story. I remember that I was out with another devotee. Lokavartam was his name. We were selling candles to different malls, but we were in the DC area. I can't remember what year, but Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj had a small preaching center in Washington, DC. So we went there for the morning program. And while we were there, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj asked me to give the Bhagavatam class. So I said, okay. So when the time came, I chanted Jai Radha Madhava, we read the verse, we read the purport, and for some reason my mind just went blank, I was just sitting there. But then all of a sudden, one of the devotees that was living there asked this real challenging question. I didn't know where it was coming from, but immediately Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj started answering it, and they got into this argument, back and forth, and they were actually kind of yelling, and they really got into an argument. But at the end, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was explaining everything so nicely that it had a really wonderful end. But then that was all the time for the Bhagavatam class, and I didn't even say one word. And so then, there was, I believe, Prasadam, and after Prasadam, he came up to me and he said, oh, thank you for giving Bhagavatam class. And I said, Maharaj, I didn't say a word. And he said, yeah, but just because you were here, it kind of brought this thing out. It's been simmering for a long time, and now it's out in the open. I think it's all resolved now. So, it was probably the best class I ever gave. Didn't say a word. But he was such a wonderful devotee like that. And I actually got the opportunity. I was in New Vrindavan when news came that Maharaj was very, very sick. And it was during the Festival of Inspiration, and Radhanath Maharaj and a whole bunch of devotees, we all went out to see Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And he was so personal with everyone. It was just amazing. I'll never forget that. And I just feel really grateful that I had his association, a super special devotee. And I'm just so glad to have all of yours association here today too. So thank you very much. Hari Bol.
Next, we'd like to one of the honorary inmates who Tirtha Swami was happy to serve with. She promises that she won't say anything. So we're just gonna have her sit up there and look at her 5 minutes. Oh yeah, please. If some people can move forward so we have room for other people to sit. Father Venkatesh, please assist us through.
Do you think you can do the microphone here?
Do the microphone?
I mean, setting up the microphone for the speakers, so I don't have to be coming and going every time. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thanks. I didn't actually promise that I wouldn't say anything. I said I don't know what I'm going to say. But what I thought of while I was just sitting there listening to Soma Prabhu, I remembered going here in Alachua to a program honoring Maharaj a few years back at Nandini Kishori's house, and Vishaka was there. And so when it was Vishaka's turn to glorify Maharaj, she described having been in Mayapur one time when there was a lady assigned to give the Bhagavatam class in the morning in Mayapur. And as it turned out, when the lady who was to give the class sat down on the Vyasa-san. There was no book and there was no microphone. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who knew well how people can have preconceived ideas about who's qualified and who's not, manifested his lion-like aspect, and he accosted the Bengali brahmacharis and said, "You, go get the book. You, get the microphone." And they produced the book, and they produced the microphone. And then the lady devotee was able to give the class. And I asked Vishaka afterwards, who was the lady? Vishaka Dasi. So this is Maharaj. He was always for the, underdog, those who needed to be cared for, who were often overlooked, the children. Black-bodied devotees hardly had much presence, but he brought a whole bunch. Went to Africa, preached, and brought Ghanaian devotees back to Girinagari and made us love their subjis. My favorite subji at the Thanksgiving potluck was greens cooked with peanuts, tomatoes, and it was hot. And I'm not a big fan of hot, but it was like, instead of dessert, can I have more of those greens, please? And he'd have everybody speak what they were grateful for. So, Maharaj's glories are well known, but I just wanted to share that little bit. Hare Krishna.
No, it's good.
So next we would like to invite Mahesh Prabhu to give his offering. Mahesh Prabhu had close association with Gurudev in Hawaii, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So welcome, Mahesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Well, I don't know why I've been so fortunate in this lifetime. Really don't know, but I have had a lot of association with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I consider him my Shiksha Guru and one of the great pillars of our spiritual life. And I've spent a lot of time with him. So I have had many, many pastimes with him. Of course, the legendary kirtans in New Vrindavan and also in Washington, D.C. and other places where he had done his kirtans. I've been trying to also produce a film. Actually, I was about to a few years ago, about 3 years ago, except that I was about to enter the University of Florida to study there, get my PhD program, and produce these films that are based on the life of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj from the book Black Lotus. That's the biography. So I'll make a story short because there is a lot of people here that like to speak, so I don't want to take too much of your time. But when I was writing the script, I was reading from the book, and then I was in front of the computer. I was trying to write, and how would this come out? But somehow or other, the voice of Maharaj just came through, and I was just typing it. Like I could see the pastimes that are right in that book. I could see them in my head, and I would be able to put it into a script. So it was very, very interesting, the things that came out. And I hope that one of these days I can produce that, those films. I'm definitely thinking about it. I just connected with a filmmaker, film director in Gainesville, graduated from UF, that is very interested in helping me to produce these films of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's life story. But besides the point, if I wanted to tell you something that you could take home, that would be something that you could meditate and and you could see a glimpse of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's personality. I would say that it really was, what impressed me the most was his Tirtha. He was really a great dancer. It was beyond dancing, actually. He was not really a dancer as we think of a dancer. He was really beyond that. And so I like to just say it in a few words, although it's very difficult and complicated to say, but let's put it this way. When you were in Kirtan with Bhakti Tirtha Swami, this is what I've experienced. And if you had on the mix Radhanath Swami there, you really were in another world. Kirtan really was given to us by Srila Prabhupada as a means to conquer the material nature. I really mean that when I say that I experienced that in the presence of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, because he really wasn't, he was not of this world. He was like an angel, really, an angel that came, or a Vishnuduta came out of somewhere, but I don't know where he came from, but he was extraordinary. And even someone like me there, I don't know anything about anything, really. But when I was in his presence, I forgot the material world. So the only thing that I can say, and I hope you can understand this, maybe a little too technical, the only thing that I could relate to is about this story from a book called Beyond Doubt. Also, it was produced or published as Dialectic Spiritualism, which was a critique by Srila Prabhupada of Western philosophy. And the last chapter of the book is about Dr. Carl Jung, who was explaining how there is a soul and there is a super soul. And Prabhupada was agreeing with some of these things. And he said, well, yes, there is an ego, and that there is a super ego, and that there is an archetype of the personality. And Prabhupada was agreeing with this. And then Carl Jung differed from Sigmund Freud, because Sigmund Freud thought that the end of life and the superior power was sex desire. But Dr. Carl Jung says, yes, but we can superate that sex desire by bringing that energy, spiritual energy, into the mix and bringing all of our energies to glorify God. And Prabhupada said, yes, that's exactly what we are trying to say here. And the way we are doing is through the process of Kirtan. So basically, when I was in those Kirtans with Maharaj, I was basically trying to sublimate the false ego, my desire for being in this material world, into another world which is beyond this world. And that was the Kirtan. That was the power of that Kirtan. It was not of this world. And so every day that passes, I do have Maharaj on my altar, and I pray to him that he can help me to understand these things, and that gives me a little service so that I can continue. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you can take a little bit from Hare Krishna.
Thank you all for coming again, and those who just came in. Just need to do a little bit technical upload here real quick. Thank you. Since we're on the subject of inmates of Itanadri, this next speaker is been a pillar of the community, even before Bhakti Tirtha Swami came there, and from what I hear, they were very welcoming to Bhakti Tirtha Swami and his disciples after he took over the farm. And She's been wonderful to all of us all these years. I don't know what else to say to describe her. Her name means young woman, maiden, a girl in bloom. In Hindu literature, it means graceful young woman. And you know what young women usually like to do, right? They like to cry a lot. So I'm preparing you for Bhakti Tirtha. Maybe just give her. Give her a second, she's coming. See, she already started. Come on, Mother Teresa. How do you go?
That's the sign of a soft heart. That's a real sign of the heart.
Don't put up the microphone, okay, please.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I have a very hard time speaking with so many devotees, but Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj I find so phenomenally wonderful to glorify. And what Prabhu said about the kirtans, I'll start there. I totally 150 million% agree with the transportation to another plane of spiritual existence when we were in kirtan with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, His Holiness. And we would dance around. Somehow there was no thought of bodily concept. It was completely spiritually ecstatic. And the only thing I can liken it to is when I was in a very few kirtans with Srila Prabhupada. There wasn't dancing at that time, it just happened to be, but there was complete transportation into the ecstatic, spiritual, loving plane with Krishna. And the holy name was so alive and vibrant and wonderful. And so the thing about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he was so personal, so loving, and for some years after Srila Prabhupada left, maybe even slightly before, there was a feeling, sometimes, for me at least, of the movement, or shall we say association, sometimes being like rules and regulations, and a fair amount of intimidation is what I felt. I could barely even ask a question after Bhagavatam class. But Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, his heart just melted the atmosphere, and he encouraged my fearful heart to be brave. And he was like a godbrother to me, but such a mentor. And I don't like crying while I talk, but I'm sorry. Anyway, I just want to say, when he was leaving, the entire universe was circumambulating that region and that atmosphere. He gave every ounce, even while he was suffering so badly. He just wanted to share every realization, anything to encourage anyone who might listen. And people came from all over the world. Radhanath Swami was there for 2 months. It was one of the most glorious times, and yet it was so very sad and heartbreaking to even think of losing his association. In the end, after he departed, there was a procession from his house through the woods down to the temple. And in that procession, the singing of the holy name while they were carrying his body was so ecstatically present. And how I felt is reading about Udilo Aruna Purababake, Mahaprabhu on Harinam, and the demigod showering flowers. And that was the last, transporting of Maharaj to the temple. And then Radhanath Swami offered big arti. They put his Maharaj's body at the feet of Radha Damodar, and we all wept. So even my little 3-year-old granddaughter was so heartbroken because he gave so much love to everyone. His endearing smile just lit up the world. So Hari Rama, thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you. One more time, Mother Taruni. Now we would like to invite Purushartha Prabhu to share his offering.
Get this so it's not making too much wind noise here. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Closer. Closer.
This is an SM58. But that, I'm sorry, it's a 57. So what it means, when you breathe into it, it makes a whole lot of noise. You might have noticed that. So maybe that other mic is better for the speaker. Sorry to go off on a technical tangent here.
No, thank you for your expertise, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
But someone should turn that on.
This is not on.
Can you turn this?
Hare Krishna. Better? Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Mane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. What's the next line? Okay. Nirvisesha Shunyavadi. What does that mean?
It
Umi.
means that Srila Prabhupada is defeating Mayavadiism, impersonalism, and voidism in the Western world.
That's the big problem in this world. Impersonalism. And my impression, the impression that sticks with me from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is that was one of his main themes, is personalism. He spoke about that a lot, and it's establishing community, sense of relationships. And it really, that's the main thing is, you think already, in Prabhupada's pranam, that's what we say. That was Prabhupada's mission. When he gave us that prayer, he established his mission. Right? We have who he was. He was a servant. He's very dear to Lord Krishna because he's taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. Servant to Saraswati Goswami, and his mission is to destroy voidism and personalism in the Western world. So Prabhupada, those prayers are very fully charged with information, actually, if we think about that. And I didn't know Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj very well. Last year, when I was asked to speak by Advaita Prabhu, I asked him not to ask me to speak this year, but somebody else did. So he kept his word. The theme of kirtan always comes up because it's such a big part of, I guess, for people who didn't have a close relationship, this is what you saw, you experienced. Last year I had mentioned also when I was a brand new devotee in Boston and the library party came through and he came in kirtan, it's that same thing, dancing, with no limit to his energy practically, and think, whoa, who is this? I'd never seen a devotee like that. And years later in Gita Nagari, seeing him in the kirtan at the Rath Yatras they had there with the big round frame drum. You've seen him with that? There's this big drum and he's playing that and dancing nonstop with unbelievable energy. It's like, wow. I remember seeing Ananta and Kishore there also at the Rath Yatras when they were really little and they had drums that like this. They were playing then. It's impressions. But the impression on a philosophical level is about personalism. This was Prabhupada's mission. I believe this was a big element in Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's mission to establish that everything is personal. Everything. When Prabhupada went to Gita Nagari, 1976, perhaps, on the bus, on one of the Radha Damodar buses, Prabhupada noticed that as you're driving out through Pennsylvania, there's mountains along one side of the road, and Prabhupada had mentioned this was a flying mountain. And of course, Prabhupada says sometimes mountains are alive, rocks are alive, but it's not. After a while, they die off, so they're not necessarily still alive. But if it was a flying mountain, that means that was a person in some form, right? So actually seeing a mountain as being personal, seeing that Krishna is present in every atom as super soul. There's personality everywhere, within everything. The rock may not have a manifest person, but within that rock, there's super soul is there within all things. So to actually be able to see like that and to bring it to like a really personal level, relationships amongst ourselves as devotees, seeing every soul, every conditioned soul as actually a servant of Krishna, as a devotee of Krishna. Even whether they're acting like it or not, whether they have any understanding or realization of it or not, that is their actual position. So this is the kind of personal understanding we want to be able to develop to help also in that same mission to spread Krishna consciousness, to spread it around the world. That's what Prabhupada's mission was, not only in the Western world, but that was a big part of the mission. We're here in the Western world. We can take that up. That's what affected me, reading some of the things he'd written, hearing some of the things he said, is just that personalism. And why would Prabhupada stress that in his pranam if that wasn't a serious thing. And the tendency is against that. We're thinking about ourselves more. I know Radhanath Maharaj would often say, selflessness is not thinking less about ourselves, but thinking about ourselves less. All right? So everything's not geared towards me, but it's about others. And that's what brings one to be very dear to Krishna, when he's actually starts looking out in concern for the welfare of others. You see, Prabhupada's whole life was dedicated like that. And we see that had been reflected in Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj as well. Those are my thoughts about that. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we would like to invite Bhumi Prabhu, Mother Bhumi, to come forward and share.
Yeah,
We try to have it about 5 minutes.
I doubt it.
Is that right?
Who's coming?
We go on the march.
Okay, well, they'll give me some time.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, they're only giving me 5 minutes to speak. I can't believe it. Okay, I only found out today that this program was going on because I went to the temple today, and it was Gundicha Marjanam, where they, Lord Chaitanya clean the Gundicha temple, and they did it out over in Alachua today. And we went through, we found on the donations pile outside the kitchen a box of Back to Godheads. And I found this article. This is from 1995. And this is called President Mandela Visits the Durban Temple. Has anyone seen this?
Yes.
Yes? Oh, so this is just old stuff for you guys?
You can say.
Okay, all right, because I want to read it. And I hope that there's some people who have never heard this that are hearing it for the first time, because this is amazing. And we just found it in the donation pile today. Okay, so tell me if you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so this is the article. South African President Nelson, this is from 1994. South African President Nelson Mandela paid a state visit last November to ISKCON's Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Temple of Understanding in Durban. More than 5,000 people were on hand to welcome Mr. Mandela, whose visit marked the annual Indian Diwali festival, also known as the Festival of Lights. Before addressing the audience, the president toured the temple, that's Nelson Mandela, garlanded the form of Srila Prabhupada. This is Nelson Mandela
garlanding Srila Prabhupada and respectfully bowed his head to the floor. He also viewed the deities and the temple filled with the sound of devotees chanting Hare Krishna. In this address, Mr. Mandela encouraged the Indian community to work with the government for peace and harmony in the new South Africa. So in other words, he had some ulterior motive for coming. Especially impressed by the ISKCON Temple's Food for Life program, which feeds 5,000 people a day, Mr. Mandela, scheduled to stay only 1 hour, canceled another official engagement and stayed for nearly 3. Mr. Mandela took a full meal at Govinda's restaurant with the 30 members of his entourage, including American Consul General Pamela Bridgewater. After the meal, devotees presented a copy of Prabhupada's Science of Self-Realization to the president and everyone in his group. So they all got a book. 30 people, 31 people, with including Nelson Mandela. This was the first official visit by a South African president to a Vedic temple. Haribol Regatmika. Anyhow, this is the picture that they took of Nelson Mandela. I will pass this around and you will get to see Bhakti Tirtha Swami in the picture. And I'll start with you, okay? And then I want to, how much time do I have? Okay, because, well, first of all, I just want to ask, how many of you are from the Gita Nagari community? Oh, okay, because it seems like every time I meet somebody who's a disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, they're always from that community. And I have a very close friend there, or a couple that are my good friends, Taraka Das and his wife, Shamagoparupa. And in 2016, oh, by the way, my name is Bhumi, for those who don't know me. And in 2016, I went to Gita Nagari to cook the wedding feast for Taraka Das's son, Kṛṣṇa. And I did that with a purva, and we cooked the feast for the wedding. So I got to go to Gita Nagari, and I got to stay with my friend Taraka and his wife Shamagoparupa. And I spoke to Taraka last night. I did not know this was going on here today. I did not know it was Bhakti Tirtha Swami's is it his Vyasa Puja? Oh, I thought this was the anniversary of his disappearance. Okay, well, I did not know that this was taking place. I only found out about it today because my housemate, Shama, was coming, and she said I could come along. So last night, I was speaking to Taraka on the phone, and he read me this poem that because he writes a lot of poems every year. He writes a poem to Bhakti Tirtha Swami, because he used to just get up and speak at the temple on his Vyasa Puja, and then he told all of his stories and he had nothing new to say. So he started writing poems to him. And this is the poem that he wrote and read to me last night on the phone. And I'm going to read it all to you if I have time. Okay, thank you. All right. So He emailed it to me because he emailed 4 or 5 different poems. I'm only going to read you one, but he emailed it to me with the title Stuff. And I'll read it to you. Because if one thing about Tarka is I love his writing. He's just brilliant. How many people here know Tarka? Okay, great. Okay, a lion with a burning heart, offered on the 76th Vyasa Puja of His Holiness, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. O lion of love with a burning heart, whose roar tore indifference apart, whose eyes held oceans fierce and kind, whose mercy unsettled the sleeping mind. You walk this earth with urgent tread, as one who hears the souls misled. You felt the clock of immortal breath and preached as one who wrestles death. Not slow, not safe, not mild, not lame. Oh, no, sorry, not tame. You carried Srila Prabhupada's flame, not as a relic, cold and framed, but fire alive, untied, untamed. You saw this world as a battlefield where wounded souls in armor yield. And like a surgeon, bold yet mild, you healed the elder and the child. You broke the conventions when love required, when colder hearts would have retired. You chose compassion over pose and watered gardens where none else chose. I think he means that he chose a preaching field that nobody had touched before. So he's known for that. You sledded hills. Did anybody ever sled with him? Okay, I never knew this about him. Okay, you sledded hills and played in game, not seeking praise, not courting fame, but binding hearts in sacred trust that souls might rise from doubt and dust. You studied well the movement's pain, its hidden wounds, its subtle strain. You traced the fracture, named the scar, and worked to heal from near and far. You watched, you listened, you engaged, while others sat aloof, detached and caged, like me. You bore the burden few could see, the weight of spiritual integrity. Your smile vast, oceanic, bright, a sunrise after endless night. Yet when required, your gaze could steal a thunder wrapped in tempered zeal. Oh, how you sang, oh, how you danced, as if the gates of heaven glanced and opened wide at Kirtan's cry, a jagya shaking earth and sky. One Kirtan from your lifted hand could purify a weary land, could change a temple's fading spark and flood the dawn, the darkest dark. And when disease consumed your frame, you did not bargain, rage, or blame. You turned your suffering into grace, a final sermon, face to face. You would not flee to distant Brudge's shore. You chose the farm we stand on more. To prove that service, pure and deep, makes cow dung soil Vrindavan keep. O brother mine, O sheltering guide, you pulled me from the undertide. You raised me up when hope was thin and showed the warrior hid within. My debt to you no tongue can pay. It grows more vast with every day. Your books will speak. No, your books still speak. Your voice still calls through beggars, tears, and sacred walls. Can anyone tell me what that means? Okay. All right. I just don't know what that means. And still your urgency remains in disciples' hearts, in preaching veins, a holy restlessness of care. Go now, rescue, do not spare. This is really long and longer than I expected to be, and I don't want to take too much time. So this will be on Shamagopa Rupa's Facebook page, and you can all see it there and finish it yourself because it's going on and on and on and on.
People, thank you for your message. Thank you very much. His Holiness Tirtha Swami is here, so we'd like to invite him with Bhakti Tirtha up to the front and take these exalted seats.
We can just ask the devotees if you guys can please move this way, just so we can have a walkway through.
That's okay. I can hold it if you want. It was just fine. I don't know what happened. It was just fine right now. Piece fell off. I got it. I got it. Okay. Hare Krishna. It's so nice to see so many people honoring dear Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I'll speak briefly so Maharaj can speak more because we have limited time. I'm going to tell two significant stories that tell you that you probably haven't heard, I hope, that tell you something about him. And we first met in the 70s, around 73, 74, something like that. He had joined the library party that Rita and Anraj had started. And he was going around the colleges doing books, and I was a graduate student at Rutgers. So, and he was Ganesham then. So I saw him at the Sunday feast, and he mentioned he's coming to Rutgers. I said, well, come to my office when you get to Rutgers, graduate student office, and I'll greet you and give you a place to freshen up. And when he got there, he's in a suit and tie, because that was very appropriate for what he's doing, opens his briefcase, and pulls out an Afro wig. And I said, Ganesham, what are you doing? And he said, I'm in a suit and tie. I got an Afro wig. They cannot ever say no. And he got a standing order. Because he was always practical, as you know, and you've heard all the stories. He was the first one, last one to bed, the first one up, and very austere, but very, very practical. And another time, both he and I had been through a difficult situation. And we ended up meeting at Nova Gokula and in Brazil, the farm in Brazil. So he said, let's go for a walk. So the two of us went for a long walk. And we're going through the woods and we come across a waterfall, a small waterfall. I'm sure you know that waterfall. And he said, take off your shirt. And he said, let's just sit under the waterfall. If you sit under the moving water, all the problems that you and I have, we both had some problems, will be washed away. So we just sat there talking about Krishna for an hour under a waterfall in the forest. And guess what? All the problems totally dissipated. And now, people are going to talk about his books and his spiritual warrior and all the wonderful things he's done. But on a personal basis, he was what I would call a real, true personalist. And every time I'd see him, and he'd give that huge grin, it would be quite amazing. Should I tell that story I told you in the car or not?
This one.
Jewish one. Maybe, maybe not. No, maybe not. Okay, we'll skip. There's one story. We'll skip that one. We'll save that for later. It was a very intimate story. A little pastime we had a Rath Yatra. But anyway, to see so many people appreciating him, and sometimes I wonder, why our great generals, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, now Badri Narayan, so many other generals leave. And, the only rationale I have is Prabhupada needed him elsewhere. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Oops.
Should I put this on, this microphone? I put this on. How many ISKCON gurus does it take to clip on a microphone? No, still not there. There. So, thank you very much, Tirtha. I first met Bhakti Tirtha Swami when he was John Favors.
Can you speak into the mic?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, really loud.
Let's see. There. Is that better?
Thank you.
Sure. We aim to please. So, in 1972, I had taken sannyas on Lord Nrsinga's appearance day with 3 other ISKCON leaders. One of them was Satsarupa Maharaj.
Heartfelt, can you just not move your head back?
I have an AI version of myself, which might work. Is that better?
Yeah, I don't mean to be rude.
No, I'll get over it, I promise you. So, we took sannyas, and we were both, and so Satsarup had formed a traveling Sankirtan party. He was the BTG editor, And so he went with about, at least a dozen brahmacharis, maybe more. And he was in the Midwest and would go to all the main cities, Chicago, Indianapolis, and so on. And they would do kirtan and sell back to Godhead. So I was in Houston, where I had been the temple president before I took sannyas. And Krishna inspired me that we need to preach at colleges all over the country, because there was very little of that going on. So I called up Satsarupa, and he agreed we'd join forces. So I drove up there. He was actually in St. Louis at the time. And so in his, I'm taking a picture. No, so it is ISKCON. So in the, so in his party, there was a brahmachari named John Favors, who would later become Ganesham. So my, the first service I did with him, I was organizing everything. I was organizing the party, sort of changing it, transforming it into a college preaching party. And so we decided, I was speaking to, who later became Ganesham, and he was from Princeton. So we came up with a plan. I said that we need letters of recommendation from prestigious universities around the country. And so since we didn't have any, we created them. So we, did anyone here remember letter set before the digital age? Remember that? Like you'd buy at a stationery store and you'd put, press the letters on. So I was, Socrates was actually condemned for corrupting the youth of Athens. So in a sense, I corrupted John Favors, because what I told him, this is what we need to do. We need to make up letters. Because, obviously we traveled to the beat of a different mridanga. We obeyed a higher law. Anyone who was there back then knows exactly what I'm talking about. So we started writing letters. So he wrote one as an officer at Princeton. He was a student body officer. And he wrote this glowing recommendation that we had the Bhagavad Dharma program at our university. Everyone loved it. It was the greatest program of the year. And then I did one from Berkeley. And then Randy Stein, who later became Mahabodhi, he wrote one from San Diego State University. And not to be limited, we even wrote letters from places we'd never been. And so, I was 23 years old, so it wouldn't be for another 6 or 7 years before I really had a functioning prefrontal cortex. It's great, takes sannyas before you have, anyway. So we made up this album, and then it worked like a charm. So we booked programs everywhere. Actually, I drove around. We started in Illinois. I went, and we were so young and passionate. I booked like about 7 different universities in Illinois in 1 week. And I was driving a little Volkswagen, and I had a brahmachari assistant who was Kṛṣṇa brahmachari. And so because I was sannyasi, I got to sleep on the back seat of the Volkswagen Beetle, and he had to sit on the 2 bucket seats in front. But anyway, so we did those programs, and then of course John Favors, he was initiated as Ganesham, and we traveled all around the country doing programs. And one image really sticks in my mind about how he was really a class act, I think the term is. We were in the Rust Belt, like in the buckle on the Rust Belt, which I think was sort of either Scranton or Akron, Ohio. And we were downtown, and there were about 7 other people downtown besides us. And so we were selling small books. I'll never forget this. A bunch of young people were walking by on the sidewalk, about maybe 6 or 7, like boys and girls. And so he approached them and just completely took over the situation. he actually told them where to stand. Okay, you stand right over here. Now you stand there. And so he choreographed everything, put them in different positions. And then he told them, okay, this book is for you. That book's for you. And they all bought the books. And I was standing there thinking, that's impressive. So he definitely had a natural authority. And as far as the library party, which, I mean, those of you who are younger may not know so much about it, but it was a huge thing in ISKCON. It was a huge thing for Prabhupada. If you were around at the time, for Prabhupada, it was like an answered prayer. And it was really that program. Kalakanta, you were on it too, right? The token white. Yeah, you were. So I'll tell you how the program started. That program, which really made Ganesham, as he was then, famous all over ISKCON, isn't it? He actually became famous, and everyone was reading every week. We'd get newsletters about the latest adventures, the impossible situations in which they'd sold all of Prabhupada's books, Behind the Iron Curtain, and just all over the world. So it was something that Prabhupada was very extremely happy about, and all of us all over the world, we were following the exploits of this library party. And Kalakanta, of course, you also get credit. You must have sold a bunch yourself.
I was supposed to carrying his book bag.
The ideal one. So I'll tell you how that program started, which really first made Bhakti Tirtha Swami Ganesham sort of an international star in ISKCON. It started in Prabhupada's garden in Los Angeles. As I often did, I was sitting alone with Prabhupada in his garden, and he asked me if his books were in the libraries. And also, I think, bookstores he mentioned. So I said, well, not so much, Prabhupada. And then I said, probably not that many people would check the books out of the library. Prabhupada made it very clear to me that was the wrong answer. So I tried again. I said, that was 1973, by the way. So I just said to Prabhupada, basically, consider it done. Your books will be in the libraries. That was the right answer. And that's the way it was with Prabhupada. So anyway, we were traveling around in our college preaching program, and I started it in Iowa City. In Iowa City at the University of Iowa. I went into the library, and they had a whole department just for Asian acquisitions. So there was a very nice man. He welcomed me into his office, and then he bought all the books. He bought a set of books, and that was the first sales to a library. And the only problem was I called up ABT. They didn't even have an order form because they didn't sell sets of books. So they actually had to invent an order form. Anyway, so then I was doing that. I was basically selling the books in the libraries and also selling Prabhupada's books as textbooks in different universities. And then I decided at a certain point, it was around November, December of 1973. And I thought that Ganesham and Mahabhuti, they could start doing that program. I could train them. So we happened to be in New York, so we went to the garment district in New York. And I bought them both, Ganesham and Mahabhuti. I bought them both these really nice 3-piece suits. Really nice, you get cheap in the garment district. Hare Krishna's never pay retail. So, and then I sort of trained them, say this, say that, and we printed up some things they could give out. And then I went to India for the first annual Mayapur festival, and at that festival, Prabhupada called me to his room, asked me to be GBC of Latin America. So when I got back, our party was in New Haven, Connecticut. We were doing programs at Yale. When I got back, I just turned it over to them. And Satsarup became sort of the leader of the program. And that's how the library program started, or at least that's how Ganesham got involved. And as I said, it became like headline news every week. The latest impossible book sales, the latest exploits. And of course, then he became, of course, Ganesham took sannyas, and then he went to Africa. Does anyone remember exactly what year he went to Africa? 81. I had thought of Africa, that we have to open Africa, but of course never did it because part of my zone was very close to Africa, the northeast part of Brazil. It sticks out toward Africa. So when Bhakti Tirtha Swami went to Africa, he was already a famous devotee in ISKCON because of the library sales. And then when he went to Africa, he really, I guess you'd call it in our ISKCON jargon, became a self-manifest leading preacher because he conquered a whole continent. I had gone to Latin America, so I could especially appreciate it because we'd done something like that in Latin America. And so everyone knows, very famous stories, how he became, I think, a Zulu chief and all the different things he did in Africa. And probably no one else in the Hare Krishna movement could have done that. So there are other devotional services where you could say, well, someone would have done that. But in this case, not really. In fact, the previous attempts to, I don't want to say colonize Africa for ISKCON because that's obviously the wrong expression. But previous attempts to, let's say, establish the Hare Krishna movement in Africa always would just sort of, end up being life member programs for the Hindus in Africa. And no one had really made a serious breakthrough among native Africans, which is what Prabhupada cared about very much. And that's why what Bhakti Tirtha Swami did in Africa is why it would be so important to Prabhupada. Prabhupada had a mantra that he spoke. He spoke it, I sat at his feet in the Honolulu airport, and he said it. He also said it in Australia. He also said it in Nairobi. And what Prabhupada said, I think we have to pay a lot of attention to certain things that Prabhupada said because he revealed really what this movement is supposed to be. So what he said, as I sat at his feet, and he said to a press conference in Honolulu, what he said in Nairobi, what he said in Australia and other places is he wanted local devotees. So when Prabhupada went to Nairobi, and of course Brahmananda greeted him, and they had a lot of people coming, but they were Indian, mostly businessmen. And Prabhupada kept asking, where are the native Africans? And so that's something we have to take very seriously in the West now. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami is the one who did in Africa what Prabhupada always wanted to be done, even when we had some centers in Africa, but South Africa was open. I happened to be in Prabhupada's room when Kṛṣṇa Swami first came and asked permission to open the first center in South Africa. So Bhakti Tirtha Swami is the first one that really cracked, in a sense, Africa, that really broke through and found a way to very powerfully bring to Krishna and to Prabhupada, by far, obviously, the native population, the most important people in that continent. And that was something that I don't think anyone else in the Hare Krishna movement could have done that. So then, just to wrap up, his last several years, Bhakti Tirtha Swami became very concerned with probably the oldest joke in ISKCON, which is, I thought this was supposed to be a personalist movement. Remember that? Or maybe not a joke. Well, the truth is often told in jest. And that was and I could go into all the socio-psychological, historical reasons for it. There actually is, I think, a rational explanation for why the movement that was bringing personalism to the world, you didn't always get treated personally within ISKCON. I'll spare you the social science analysis unless you pay me, and then I'll do it. I mean, anyway, yeah, maybe I'll save that for another time. But Bhakti Tirtha Swami became very concerned with not only complaining about that, but actually doing something about it. And so in his travels around the world, he did something which wasn't so common. And that is a big leader treating other devotees like, like real people and just showing real affection for them. He began signing his letters love instead of your ever well wisher. And I thought, that's interesting. And he would give seminars, and he basically was focused, traveling around the world. He was focused on inspiring devotees, persuading them to sort of let down the walls and actually really like each other, be very personal, and take care of each other. So to say that was kind of revolutionary at the time, of course, doesn't speak so well of ISKCON, but it was kind of revolutionary at the time. And so anyway, I'm going to wrap up, but as a historian myself, I make a little money on the side as a historian of religion. That was actually my undergraduate major at UCLA, world religions. In many ways, he was a pioneer. In many ways, he was a pioneer. And so I pointed out probably the three most important ways in which I think a serious historian would credit him with important innovations or important contributions, not just doing what everyone else was doing, but actually doing something that very few were doing. One is, of course, the library party, which was putting Prabhupada's books in places where it was virtually impossible to put them. So that was his first, like I said, that was the first thing he did that really established him as a prominent devotee in ISKCON. After that, he became a GBC of Africa, and I think Lord Chaitanya's movement in Africa will always be associated with him. I mean, as long as there is a Hare Krishna movement in the world, however many thousands of years that is, I think it will be impossible to talk about the Hare Krishna movement in Africa or how it came to Africa without giving pride of place to him. And then the third contribution was trying to make a personalist society personal. So, and so he very much focused on that. So as a historian, and as someone who knew him well, I think those are his three significant, very significant, his contributions of historical significance that will be remembered. So, thank you all very much.
Maybe you can validate something. There's a story that I heard a while ago that I like to ask you. You guys were always debating with each other.
Oh, yeah, that we were.
And,
Oh.
he would always win, but on this one occasion, Bhakti Tirtha Swami won, and then you got up and threw some water in his face.
No, I actually didn't throw water in his face.
Is that true?
No, I think I threw it on his shirt. But that was, maybe I'll just mention one thing, because we were, I would be dishonest if I didn't say that I think I won the debate, but he kept going. So, but in any case, we had great times. Maybe I'll just tell a little, that was San Antonio. That was in San Antonio. Just two quick stories from San Antonio. Bhakti Tirtha Swami was Ganesham, then Brahmachari. Of course, he was really good at getting people to come to the programs. Satsarup had rented a house in San Antonio because I was like this, I don't know what you call it, like Mighty Mouse or something, flying all over and preaching all the colleges. And so he wanted to stay longer, Satsarupa, and kind of, try to do something. So he rented a house for a month in San Antonio. Then he had to go, and Ganesham was traveling in his party. So Satsarup had to go back to Dallas, take care of, he was GBC there in the Gurukula. So he asked me to fly out and take care of the program. So Bhakti Ganesham, then he was getting a lot of people to come. And one person that he was cultivating was a young San Antonio policeman, actually from a Hispanic background. And so the people coming to our program were mostly, you could say, counterculture, hippie type people, the people that were coming. So here we are sitting there in the room, and maybe Satsarup was speaking that night. No, I guess I was speaking. And there's all these counterculture, hippie type people, peace and love. And this policeman comes in who's actually, becoming a devotee. And so right there, because probably at least half people in the room had illegal drugs on them. So this policeman walks into the room and everyone's like freezing. And then he offers obeisance, and this huge pistol falls out and bounces on the floor like this big pistol. And the hippies are. Anyway, that was one program that Bhakti Tirtha arranged. So, and then he also arranged a program. Yeah, I would never throw the water in his face. It was just his shirt. But so then he arranged a program at the San Antonio Lions Club. And if you know San Antonio, which of course you know San Antonio, back then, San Antonio, Texas, 1973 was not a Hispanic city. It was Texas in the old sense of Texas. It was a cowboy town. And so Ganesham, having equal vision, booked me at the Lions Club. So these are not only white Texans, these are Republican white Texans and businessmen, but he booked it. So we went there, and I gave this rousing patriotic speech, like glorifying American, which really came straight from Prabhupada. Because Prabhupada would always appeal to our nationalism. Prabhupada would always say, you come from the most important country, America's the greatest country, so now make it Krishna conscious. So I gave a rousing, and afterwards, they all wanted to have their picture taken with me, the San Antonio Lions Club. Just one thing about Prabhupada in America is one time we picked up Prabhupada at the LA airport, LAX, and I'd always come back in Prabhupada's car, and they had a limousine for Prabhupada, so I was sitting opposite Prabhupada. And it was very foggy. I mean, you could hardly see 10 feet in front of you. So Prabhupada was amazed at how the airplane landed in the fog. He asked about that one devotee. He said, well, Prabhupada, they have radar and so on. So then Prabhupada said, in this material world, there's no happiness. But if there's a little happiness, it's in America. But anyway, that was the San Antonio story. So, thank you all very much. Thank you.
When I get a chance to get a personal darshan, I'll get the actual story of that, right?
Yeah.
Maharaj ki. Now we'd like to continue with the offerings. And next we'd like to have Alakanta Prabhu speak.
Everyone like to just stand up for a minute? I think they've been sitting a long time. Now stand up, stretch a little bit. We've got the yoga teachers here who can lead a couple of stretches. The mind can only conceive what the seat can endure. Yeah. Would you like a cup of water? No, it's not, but I could use it. Hare You're sick? Oh, you're just being cautious. Okay, we'll start in 1 minute, please. 1 minute, everybody. Everybody's fired up to talk. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Do you need help having everyone sing again?
Is this on? That's okay. Sorry.
I'll get the microphone.
Yeah, get it on. I'll get started.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanamarandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chaksurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Have you ever had a time in your life where looking back you wish you had taken notes? Yes. When I joined the Hare Krishna movement right out of high school, I was 18, and very inexperienced. Somehow Krishna swept me up in this wonderful association of devotees in Portland, Oregon in 1972. And then in 1974, the library party, which had just started, came through Portland Temple, and I got to meet His Grace Ghanshyam Prabhu for the first time. So he was, there were just maybe three or four members of the party then, but he was a very interesting person. And they were kind enough to take me out and show me how to do the libraries, the idea that we would do them locally. But then they invited me to join the party in November of that year. So from that time on, from 1974 to 1978, I had a lot of interaction with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So just as Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote about the early pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and then Krishna Das Kaviraj, the later pastimes generally. So I can tell you a little about the Adi Leela of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, because honestly, after 1981, we rarely saw each other. So those early days, I just wish I'd taken notes because it was a transformative experience to be in his association. I was a middle-class white kid from Albuquerque. He was from the ghetto in Cleveland. Not ghetto quite, but depressed economic areas. And I was a high school graduate. He was a Princeton graduate. You know, he was 26, I was 20. There was a big gulf of difference, and that was a lot in those years, right? 5 or 6 years older was like another millennium. But so we were just as different as we could be. And he was one of the van leaders. I was one of the van shifters. I go around from week to week to different van leaders. I always looked forward to being in Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's van because he was the kindest, most jovial, most astute, most introspective and loving person I had ever met in my life, even in those very early days. So he told me about his life, and I'm going to share what I can remember. Probably many of you know these things. But he grew up more or less in a single parent family. His father was a businessman, kind of an absentee father. He loved his mother very, very much. He stuttered when he was a young man. The only time he would not stutter was when he was talking about the Bible. Very religious family. And he was so good at that he was even on some television broadcasts and other things. So in those days, there were efforts to equalize, to have affirmative action in some of the bigger educational institutions in America. And he excelled at his studies in his high school, and he managed to get this scholarship to Princeton, a highly prestigious university. So he spent his 4 years there. He was a student activist, very interested in racial equity and other social issues, Vietnam. And when he graduated, by the time he was in his senior year or so, he was looking for spiritual life. He had come to the conclusion that the ordinary course of events was not really his forte, not really his inspiration in life. And so he began studying various paths, Buddhism, Islam, meditation of different kinds. And he found a guru who he really liked. So he began to get close with this guru. And as he got closer, he said that his guru told him, "Do you really want to know the highest truth?" He said, "Yes, that's Guru. Then you have to go to Bhaktivedanta Swami." So that was sort of his introduction to the Hare Krishna movement. So he did that. He began reading Prabhupada's books. He began associating with devotees in New York, and became Bhaktajan. So Bhaktajan is well-educated young man, was doing some kind of menial services. Satsarup Maharaj somehow connected with him. He became his assistant, doing his secretarial work. And then as Vridananda Maharaj was describing, when the library party began, he ended up taking part in that. Because he had such charisma, he had such power. So the library party was a very aggressive form of selling books to these institutions. Can I tell you about how we did it?
Yes, please.
So I joined the party and they trained me up. So typically book salesmen from publishers go into a campus and they have these big bags, catalog bags they're called. And so they'll go and visit some professors and they'll open a catalog with thousands of titles to try to find some books that will be relevant for that professor's course and perhaps for the library. So we didn't have thousands of books, we had about 10. And so we actually carried the books with us. Hridayananda Maharaj described going into the University of Iowa, finding a very receptive professor who immediately ordered the books. Those were the rare exceptions. Most of the time, the universities did not have big studies, programs in Asian studies or Indian studies. And so we had to sort of create interest. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Mahabhuti, the two elder members of the party, had figured out this system. We go into the university library in the morning. The first thing we do is look up. This was pre-digital age. We had to go what they call a card catalog. Some of you fossils in the room remember card catalogs in libraries. So we'd see what books they had, and then we would drop in to visit the librarian who would be in charge of purchasing. And we'd introduce ourselves. We were wearing our suits, our wigs. We're from the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. We're just here to visit some professors on campus and just wanted to stop by and introduce ourselves. Okay, thanks very much. All right, and if there's some interest, we'll come see you in the afternoon. Oh yes, okay, that'll be fine. And then, okay, thanks. And then on the way, oh, by the way, sometimes I run into professors in the lunchroom or something, and they're not in their office. Do you have a few order cards I might carry just in case I meet them somewhere where they don't have their order cards? And they give us a few blank cards, not a big deal. No one else ever did that, but they give them to us. So then we go and find some office somewhere where there was an available typewriter. We'd ask, can we borrow your typewriter? We would fill in all the order cards. Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, anything they didn't have, we'd have the cards, multiple copies with us. Then we'd go out and see the professors in various departments. So if there's a religious studies department, that was the primo. Usually the older devotees would get that one, and then they'd send us juniors to the English department or whatever. But we'd just go around and try to meet people personally and chat with them. So I had never been to college, but I learned from Maharaj and some mentors how to do this. Basically, any professor I would meet, I would call them doctor, even if I knew full well they didn't have a PhD. Well, doctor such and such. And then we'd talk about their lives and what their experiences were, and then say, oh, and we have these books. Then we'd actually pull out the books and show them. And so just often as a favor, they say, yeah, I'll order some books, like that. So then at the end of the day, we'd go back to the librarian and say, wow, there's a great reception for these books. Look at all these order cards. And with any luck, they'd give us a purchase order right there for the whole set of Srimad Bhagavatams and Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was very aggressive. It usually worked. Once in a while, it would blow up. One librarian said, your wig-wearing salesman came to see us. So there were some good salespeople. I learned to make sales, but Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was just Ganesham. I'm going to call him Ganesham Prabhu because that was how I knew him. He would just make these incredible sales. He once went into a nursing department because the other departments hadn't ordered, so desperate, he went to the nursing department and came out with an order for 60 Krishna books because he convinced the nursing professor that this is a good book to read to someone who's coming out of a coma. He could think on his feet. One time he came to a professor's office, and this was the psychedelic era, so this particular professor had black lights on his wall and then fluorescent posters on the wall. Yeah. So when he came in, Ganesham in his afro wig, it was glowing green. And the professor said, I've never seen that happen before. And Ganesham said, I guess it's that new shampoo I'm using. Somehow or other, he would manage to make the sales more than anybody. Being with him in the van was an amazing experience. Just two of us in this van with a platform in the back. He was always incredibly austere. He would rise, he'd get up around 1 o'clock. We'd chant 32 rounds. He would write a letter to Prabhupada. And then when 4 o'clock rolled around, he made sure that I was up. And he'd do all these things. And you know, we're not supposed to share our vows with anyone, right? Because that can be prideful. Oh, I'm fasting for Ekadasi, how about you? Near Jal, what about you? So he would never exercise any pride, although I knew he was doing these things. He would just say, with my background, I have to do so much more purification than you do. So he never made me feel less. He always made me feel respected and loved. And I honestly came to love him more than anyone I had loved in my life. Being with him was just transformative. I asked him, Maharaj, I'm a high school graduate, you've been to college. Tell me about the college experience. What is college all about? Ultimately, it's about sex life. That was his synopsis of Princeton University.
You see it in Gandul too.
Something going around. One time we were traveling to a university. We would aim to be on campus about 9 in the morning. If the weather was warm, we'd stay in campgrounds. Maharaj was extremely frugal. Each party leader was responsible for paying the bills and keeping costs down. So we would we'd find somewhere in the parking lot to spend the night in the van. Then we'd go over to a campground at like 3 in the morning when there was no one there. And we just drive in, use the showers. And that way we avoid having to pay the $5
Did you ever shower in a car wash?
No, we didn't go that far. I know a lot of, yeah, Sankirtans, they were more like, we had to be dressed in our suits and looking nice and everything. So yeah, I remember Maharaj, the other thing, he had just this unlimited reservoir of energy. So we do work a campus all day, jump in the van and drive maybe 200 miles to the next day's campus. And I would be just exhausted and he'd just be, completely unaffected. So I remember vividly one night we got into the town, it was around 8 o'clock at night. It was cold, so we'd have to get hotel rooms when it was cold. So I swear he went to 6 different hotels, or motels, I should say, because he didn't want to spend $10 a room. He was looking for one for $9. And finally, after 5, I said, could we please just stay somewhere? But he had this superhuman energy. When we would go to temples on the weekends, he would always plug in. He'd be doing deity worship. He would be leading kirtans. He was just full of energy and life and joy. Again, I wish I had written. These are just some of the outstanding things I remember. One day we were supposed to be on campus at 9, but it was 10, and we discovered that we were going in the wrong direction, driving away from campus, not towards it. This was pre-GPS, of course. And I was thinking, oh no. And he just had this big grin on his face and said, this must be a really good campus because Maya's making it hard for us to get there. Completely unflappable. After we covered basically all of the colleges in the lower 48s, all over the country over those 4 years. Then we went to Europe to do the same program in the European countries. And there he and I were together most of that 3 or 4 month period in the fall of 1975. So we went to the Scandinavian countries. They were very good. Then we went to England. Okay, England was going to be the best of the best because, of course, they had such a connection with India. What we found in England was everyone looked down their nose at India. We could not sell a book, very few sets. It was so tough. So he was like kind of surprised, but not deterred. And so we went to Oxford, which is the big university, in great hopes we'd get reviews wherever we'd go, wherever possible. He was just really determined to get a review at Oxford. And so we went to all the departments, could not find any interest anywhere. Then he met one graduate student teacher, like a TA in the bathroom in Hinduism, and talked with him. And I don't think he had the authority to order, but he agreed to write a review. And so that review has been published widely. Dr. Gary Gallade, Oxford University. But he was determined to get it, and he got it. So I got to share with you one. Can I tell you a little bit of a confidential story? Okay, don't tell anyone. All right. When we first got to England, it was quite cold, and Maharaj, being as frugal as he was reluctant to spend money on a warm coat. So he thought, finally, after working this university, when we were leaving the library, he went to the coat rack and picked up a coat and walked out. I said, "Where did you get that coat?" He said, "Well, it kind of came to me." But then he found in this coat, he found the man's wallet. And so he very scrupulously went to the post office and mailed the wallet back. That's just the kind of person he was, that he was just out of the box about everything. Just thinking about how to maximize his service for Srila Prabhupada. So those were some of my memories of him. I thought at the time that I was just entering the spiritual world by being in Krishna consciousness, and he was just one of the facets of Krishna consciousness, and it was going to be like that forever, and there'd be so many wonderful. I didn't know at the time how extraordinary he really was, but it made an impression on me that has stayed with me for 50 years. After that, we sort of parted ways. And he went in the renounced order, I went in the denounced order, as they say. Not really. That's just what the fanatics say. But anyway, and we're not fanatic, right? No, Mahaprabhu would. But so we rarely cross paths. Most of you know him from much later than that, those later years in his amazing pastimes in Africa, in Eastern Europe, and what Maharaj was saying earlier, Hridayananda Maharaj was saying about him introducing personalism in ISKCON. It was very, very powerful and profound. I remember it vividly in Mayapur one year. He was on the GBC, and he was asked to give the Bhagavatam class, and he gave this really heavy class about how women were being mistreated in ISKCON. And it was so out of context, you could hardly believe it at the time. But he was completely fearless and completely determined to make sure everybody felt welcome and respected in Prabhupada's house. So that was Ganesham Prabhu. Yes. When he took sannyas, he had been with Satsvarup Maharaj for many years, and then he went to New Vrindavan, which was a very burgeoning part of ISKCON at that time, and accepted sannyas from Kirtanananda Swami. So I asked him, why did you do that? And he said, well, I wanted to have some more diverse association. But then when New Vrindavan kind of went off the rails, then he kept this position where he could just preach more independently. And that's when he started in Africa and did so many amazing things. And then the GBC warmly invited him to join them a few years later. So you know him as a guru. I knew him as a friend. I knew him as a partner and a mentor and a van mate. And I loved him like anything. He was just so kind, like a father, an older brother. I was a more senior devotee in Krishna consciousness, but in fact, he was my senior in every respect and my guide in life. So I'm very happy to have the chance to remember him today with you. Thank you for coming to glorify him and appreciate him. Hare Krishna.
Thank Alachua Prabhu one more time. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's beautiful to see how brothers and sisters, they share same qualities. And I would like to thank you very much for your always balanced and harmonized view of our society, and even bringing that harmony to the higher ranks of ISKCON and GBC, something that our Guru was always doing. So thank you very much. Next, we would like to welcome Leonanda Prabhu to share his offering. Leonanda Prabhu had also association of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. Not long ago, I found one picture of my initiation, and Leonanda Prabhu was there. I don't know, almost 30 years ago.
Just to make sure that he behaved.
Leonanda Prabhu as well. Since I know him for so many years, a very responsible devotee, very balanced gentleman. He's like our Gurudev. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. It's an honor to be here and to speak about Bhakti Tirtha Swami. When I used to live in Brazil and was the temple president of Nova Gokula, I used to receive this ISKCON World Review newspaper, which had news of the Hare Krishna movement all over. And there was always a whole page of Bhakti Tirtha Swami's adventures in Africa. And I read each one of them, and I was so uplifted by his adventures. And I wanted so much to meet with him, but I never had the chance to do so. Then I came to the US and became president of the Vyāsa Mandir, the Detroit temple. And there was a North America GBC president's meeting in Chicago. And Bushai and I drove to Chicago, and who we found there? Bhakti Tirtha Swami. There was some issues about Bhakti Tirtha Swami's relationship with Kirtanananda Maharaj on those days. And at that meeting, these issues were to be discussed. And the person that was going to be asking questions was Ravindra Sarupa. You know, for those who don't know Ravindra Sarupa, you don't want to be on the receiving end of his questions because he is cold as ice, like one of those attorneys, prosecutors, So Ravindra Sarupa Prabhu. So Ravindra Sarupa was here on my right side at one corner, and it was a long table. And on the other side was Bhakti Tirtha Swami on the other end, on my left. And the questions were very pointed. Why this? Why that? And you could feel that the room became tense at that moment. And I'm just wondering how Bhakti Tirtha Swami is going to answer. And he answered each question without hesitation, was very firm in his answers. And at the end, everybody was happy and all the issues were resolved. No issues. Yeah. So he had this purity that could convince people asking. And then later, Sridhar Swami, the late Sridhar Swami, from ISKCON, who was a very good friend of mine, called me in New York and said, no, you're working for this important company. He used to work for an important bank, investment bank. And he said, can you organize a seminar of the 7 habits of very highly effective people? Perhaps you can bring some of your colleagues. I said, I think I can do that. So I organized it at the Towaku Temple in New Jersey, and my manager came and others came. And during the time, between the time he spoke to me and the time of the seminar, about 2 weeks before the seminar, he called me and said, you know, Bhakti Tirtha Swami is going to be in town during that time. Do you think I should invite him to join us? I said, yes. Can you contact him? I said, yes. So I contacted him and I said, no, would you like to join us? He said, yes, I will join. So my manager came and others came, and some local people, professionals, was a complete success. And then I became closer to Bhakti Tirtha Swami at that meeting. And then he said, you know, I am going to Mauritius, and I will be meeting with the president of Mauritius to present a project, Character is Power. And, but it's 3 days from now, my flight, and I don't have a place to stay. I said, you have now? My house is 20 minutes from JFK. It's a straight road on Southern State Parkway. You can stay at my house. It's just me and my son, and sometimes he's with his mother. So he came. We drove about 2.5 hours from Towaku to Long Island, maybe more, maybe 3 hours. And when the trip started, it was like, okay, now you tell me about your life. How did you join the Hare Kṛṣṇa? So I went right back to him. You do first. And he right back to me, no, you first. I said, okay, you're a Swami. So I made my life very short because I wanted to listen from him. I knew he had so much to say. So he went all the way, and again, like Kalakanta Prabhu, I wish I had a tape recorder or something on those days, or an iPhone, which was non-existent on those days. But he told me from the day he was born, growing up, his mother, the school, that this white girl that was in love with him, and the whole thing, it kept going on. And when he joined the temple, and that he asked Prabhupada, and the guru that told him, I gave you all the knowledge that I could give. If you want more knowledge, you go to the guru of the Hare Krishna movement. And he said, those with those, wrapped on sheets? No, that's the man. That's the man, the guru said, and don't come back to me. And then when he asked Prabhupada, there's discrimination in your movement, there's racism, and Prabhupada told him that, well, if you see people as racist, that means you think you are this body. So you are as bad as they are. I said, wow, nobody ever told me like this. And everybody said, yeah, there's so many racist people. Yes, yes. No. And he kept going. And actually, when we got home, he was still maybe 75% of the whole history of his life. And then he stayed in my house with a brahmachari, really nice man. I don't know his name. He must have been like 18 or 19, was a white fellow, maybe from Jewish family. And just a couple more things. He told me, I answer on average 200 emails per day. Well, I was answering emails. I had an important position, had many emails, and at about 200 is a lot of emails. Yeah. And I was wondering, how do you answer these emails? And then that same day I saw the brahmachari was sitting on the living, it was a small house. The brahmachari was sitting on the floor, on the living room with a laptop. And not only this, he answered the 200 emails without touching a laptop, which was even more amazing. So the brahmachari would be reading all the emails, and Bhakti Tirtha Swami would be pacing back and forth. Okay, some emails, the brahmachari knew the answer, what flight are you arriving on, what's your diet, things like that. But others, he had to specifically answer. And I was listening to everything in small house. I was cooking, and he was speaking, and I could listen. And I could notice that he was always encouraging to everybody. Somebody, if my memory doesn't fail me, but somebody wrote that, I am having a problem with my service. I've been doing it for a long time, and I don't want to do this service anymore. I want to do something else. And he said, it's so wonderful that you came to this movement, to be part of this movement. And I understand that sometimes doing the same thing for a long time, it can be kind of boring. But this movement is so amazing that it has so many activities, basically unlimited activities you can do anywhere. And I noticed that you are good at this. You mentioned something. So why don't you explore this option? You have my blessings, with love. And he was, he was a very huge personalist, because on those days, nobody wrote with love. Is your servant, or your most humble servant, or your most fallen servant, or the most fallen than the other fallen servant. But no, nobody ever wrote with love, just with love. And I have a collection of emails that I exchanged with him. I remember he wanted me to come to Washington, D.C., and that's the last thing, to meet some of his disciples and acquaintances that were working for the U.S. government. And we had coordinated something. I couldn't go, and it never happened. But I went to D.C. for the Ratha Yatra Festival. And there was a lot of traffic, and when I got there with my son, was a little late, and I told my son, we are not going to change in Vardoti because we're going to miss the whole parade. It's already late. We parked the car, went straight to the parade. And then after the parade, he was on the stage speaking. And I didn't want him to see me dressed in non-devotional clothes. So I was all the way in the back of the crowd. So he finished his speech. He came down the stage. He came walking through everybody, came to me, gave me a big hug. And he said, these were his exact words, why you are hiding from me? We have a heart-to-heart connection, he said. And then based on that, I started on those days a website for devotee couples that would like to get married, or devotees who would like to get married, called Connect Heart. And actually several got married, including one I spoke to him recently. He's in Vrindavan now with his wife. So definitely being with Bhakti Tirtha Swami was a life-changing experience. Was really a life-changing experience. And I wish I had more of his association. Was uplifting, he was so happy. And one last thing, this is really last. He was such a handsome man, not only internally, even externally. His features, Krishna gave him a very attractive body and personality to help him attract souls to Prabhupada's lotus feet. There cannot be another reason. He is a very attractive person. And I noticed when he gave this the seminar with Tirtha Swami, my manager is not maybe a couple of years ago, my former manager told me, I still have that book you gave to me during that seminar, one of Bhakti Tirtha Swami's books. He was really amazing. Thank you very much for listening.
Haribol, Prabhu, thank you very much for your wonderful sharing. I'd like to introduce Lalita the Bell. Probably should have introduced her a little earlier, but we have like a 5 minutes window for offerings. We're running out on time. But so just when you hear the bell, maybe you can wrap it up, just because we'd like to have a lot of people share, and we want to hear from every single one of you, but unfortunately, we don't have that much time. We definitely want to hear from you, Prabhu. You owe us that story. Parmananda, Prabhu, thank you. So right now we'd like to introduce Leela Avatar Mataji. I don't know who she is, but Please. Maybe I'd like to suggest maybe we can bring the mic to people instead of having them come up. It'll save some time. But
Okay, very short. Hi, Krishna, everybody. Thank you for the invitation. This is a pleasure to be with so many great Vaishnavas. And I really appreciate your story, Kalakanta. That's amazing. When we talk about the kirtans, and Mahesh was saying a kirtan with Dana Maharaj, I think the most fire kirtan with Bhakti Tirtha was with Jaipataka Maharaj. That kirtan, whoever was there, it was in Mayapur, was fire. Wasn't, you think we go to the 24-hour kirtans or 6-hour kirtans and everybody is really into it because you get in a trance with the holy name and the association. Everybody, the energy that Maharaj has is electrical. And his kirtan wasn't a normal kirtan. This is the maximum of the joyful singing of the holy name. He had this drum and he bangs with a stick. And when he sings, and Jaipataka Maharaj had his wonders. And people was elevated. It wasn't a normal thing. It was a kirtan, obviously, for everybody was seeing. But it actually was a change in your life, kirtan. It was very amazing. And one pastime I only had with Maharaj was for the rest of my life. It was in New York, Ratha Yatra. We all were the 3 carts. The Guru Kulis, who was a very powerful kirtan, one of the best ones, were in the back with Lady Subhadra. So, you in Ratha Yatra, you go through all the carts, you see Lord Jagannath, Baladev. You go to the nicest kirtan, and I decided to stay there. And it's a long time ago, so I was really wild dancing. And I was in front of the Guru Kulis, and they were like just moving and jumping. And I said, I'm on this one. And I go and I start dancing in front of all the younger. And somebody just decided you have to follow the step. And I'm like, I'm not following the step. So they pushed me out of the kirtan. Physically, I felt this on my back, out of the kirtan. And I'm like, what the foo-foo happened? What happened? You're in ecstasy and something happened. And I started crying and it was very intense. And it's like a miracle. In the middle of this happening to me, I'm pushed on one side and in a second, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was right there in front of me, dancing with his daughter this way, and he looked at me straight in my eyes, and he said, do not curb your enthusiasm. Don't curb your enthusiasm. And I was like, yes, thank you, Maharaj. And I was crying, I was sobbing, and something happened. But then I turned around, and he was gone. And I'm thinking, what happened? Maharaj is gone. And then I see him after, and he just goes to me. And no communication. But that personal look and that friendly and that family, he was like a father, uncle, friend, brother, everything. That special thing he had. And it's in his books, and it's in his disciples. And that attitude that Maharaj had, we all need it. We all need to have it, to study it, to be kind to each other, to be lovingly love Maharaj. He's always had that. So we need to work on that as a group, as a men, women, ladies, brahmacharis, older, younger. We really need to work on that. Thanks to Maharaj and his disciples, we can continue his love Jai. Hare Krishna. Very fast. I did very fast.
Thank you, Mother Lila. Now we would like, on behalf of our Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj Sangha from Gainesville and Alachua, we would like to invite Mother Ekadashi Vrata as our representative.
I'm not the representative. You're trying to escape. Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad. Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Tirtha. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shritamane Shivara Kamya Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Tiramane. I just really am grateful to everyone for coming. I wanted an opportunity to just really glorify my Guru Maharaj. I mean, I don't have anything different to say, but even so, I have to say, I have to speak about him because he's such a wonderful person, and he's still very present in my life and the life of many others. We heard already about how Maharaj was very personal. And so I wanted to share a little bit about that because really he was instrumental in my moving to Gita Nagari. At the time, I'm originally from New York City, and I was having a very difficult situation. And I was thinking that I wanted to move to where I could be closer to devotees. And I was thinking, oh, well, New Vrindavan, I'd heard that there were apartments there. And I was thinking, well, okay, maybe I'll just try to move there. But my Guru Maharaj, he didn't think that that was a good idea. So he made an arrangement for me. And at the time I had 4 kids, and he made an arrangement for us to go live with my godbrother and godsister, Chintamani and Jagannath Pandit Prabhus. So, I mean, I don't know how many people have had that experience. I hope everyone gets to have the opportunity of experiencing how much the spiritual master cares and loves all of us. Of course, maybe it's not always going to be so close in that way. Now I'm experiencing his love in a different way because he's not in his physical body. But which is, of course, I miss being in his physical presence. But more and more, I'm understanding that he's still here. I experience him, for one thing, with my interacting with my godbrothers and godsisters. I really love you all, and because they make me really remember him more and want to serve him more. My Guru Maharaj, anything that you see about me that you think is nice or whatever is because of him. Also, I just want you to know that. Like with the deity seva, my Gurudev was also, he was into deity seva. And he was very pakka and very particular about even things like his furniture. He would pick out the furniture. He liked to do everything because it was for Krishna. It was for Srila Prabhupada. So it had to be first class. One time when I was, was that the bell? No. I was doing the Mangal Arti, like I would wake the deities. And he liked to do that. He would just kind of spontaneously show up sometimes. And so whoever was scheduled to do it, we would just like step back and let him do it. And one time I had written to him saying that how I felt like I was getting, you can get a little puffed up being on the altar and people seeing you doing, and you know, and I was having a little mental issues about that. And it was funny that I wrote that, and then maybe the next day or a few days later, it just happened to be that he showed up to do the arti. And it was a night, and then he said, "Oh, was this your day?" And he kind of laughed, you know. And it was a nice reminder for me that it's not me, it is him anyway who's doing. So whatever it is that it seems like I'm doing nicely, it's really by his mercy and he's doing it. He was very much made a point of reminding us that we needed to, as parents, that it was how important it was to take care of our children, and that the taking care of the kids, that's the service. It's not just, you know, oh, the kids, I want to do service and I don't want to deal with my kids. They're keeping me from doing service. But the kids are the service. And so when you look at my family, you should know that that's because of him. Whatever you might think about them, yeah, there's mistakes too, of course. But whatever, the good, the bad, it's because of him. And I'm really grateful. I'm not even really grateful because I'm still every day just kind of really getting to a more deeper understanding of what he did for me. You know, like I didn't even want to come to live here. Actually, I came here twice many years ago, and I didn't really like the community at the time because I felt like, oh, it's kind of loose there. You know, devotees wear karmi clothes, and it's like, but you know, when we ended up coming with his blessings, I realized that it was actually a good idea, and everything worked out very nicely. And I'm very happy now to be here as a part of this community. And I'm very happy to, if you see me as his representative, I'm very grateful. Yeah, and I just want to thank you all again for coming and sitting so patiently. I know you've been sitting a long time, but I think we just want to kind of go because a lot of people want to share love, share their feelings about His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So let's hear from someone else now. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Ekadasi Vyasa Mataji. She's actually the one disciple that brings all of us together, so we're very glad to have you here with us. So next we would like to welcome Ramananda Prabhu to come forward and give his offering. I think I've never told him before, but he's one of the reasons why I became a devotee. Because when I was 16, I was a hardcore boy.
Really?
I went to a shelter show in Brazil. And one of the reasons why I joined.
Thank you. Anchakapasurvesha, Kṛṣṇa Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So thank you for allowing me to speak. With all these great luminaries that have gone before me, I feel very humbled and grateful to have met Bhakti Tirtha Swami and has some association with him. So my story with Bhakti Tirtha Swami starts in 1992 when I moved to Philly. I was a brahmachari to join Shelter. I was going to become the guitar player of Shelter. And, you know, just to kind of set the scene, you know, ISKCON was a very different movement back then. I mean, now nobody really lives in temples. There's a big congregation. You can go on Zoom and you have Zoom classes and you have YouTube classes. You know, there's such an opportunity for Krishna consciousness that you don't actually have to move into a temple. But in 1992, pre-internet, if you wanted to know about Krishna and you wanted to learn about Krishna, You had to sell everything you owned. You had to shave your head. You had to put on orange robes. You have to wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, take a freezing cold shower. That was the only way. And so when I joined Shelter, our other guitar player, his name was Graham. And he didn't fit the mold. He was in college. He had a job. He had a girlfriend. He was a very sincere devotee. You know, he was following the principles. He chanted. But he wasn't the type of person that was going to shave his head and move into a temple. And so ISKCON at the time, in whatever you may call it, immaturity, just couldn't accommodate a person like that. But I remember, you know, after a few months of him being in the band, he came up to me, he goes, guess what? I got initiated. And I was like, you got initiated? Like, who would initiate Graham? And he goes, and he was from DC. He goes, I got initiated by this person, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He's not part of ISKCON. He's got his own movement called I Fast. And he's a black-bodied sannyasi, and he preaches mostly in Africa. But he initiated me. And I was thinking like, wow. You know, just that a person like him at the time could somehow get accommodated and could become an initiated devotee. And actually, a lot of our friends from DC who didn't fit the mold of becoming a brahmachari, they got initiated by Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And so, you know, just reflecting on it, you could just see that Bhakti Tirtha Swami was decades ahead of his time, thinking about congregation, thinking about how we can accommodate people that aren't going to become brahmacharis. Even, I would even say that ISKCON couldn't even accommodate him. He was so forward thinking and so progressive that he himself didn't fit in the ISKCON box. And so he went on and he did his preaching outside of ISKCON. And I remember, you know, my guru is Ravindra Prabhu, and he was chairman of the GBC at the time. And it was at the time when ISKCON was trying to get Bhakti Tirtha Swami back in the fold. You can imagine, you know, he's doing such big preaching in Africa. He's doing such big preaching with his I Fast in DC, you know, really kind of cutting edge preaching in ISKCON, and he's not on the team. It's like you have the star quarterback, but he's not on your team. So, and you know, other disciples of Prabhupada took shelter of Prabhupada's godbrothers, and that can be a little problematic because you don't know if they're going to match with Prabhupada. But you have Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who's 100% dedicated to Prabhupada, and he's just out there doing his own thing. So the GBC, in its wisdom, was thinking, how can we get him back? And so my guru was one of the first people that was bringing him back. And I remember he invited them to the Philadelphia temple, and we were all put on high alert. This is Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He's a great soul. He's a great preacher. We're trying to coax him back into ISKCON. Everybody be on their best behavior. Serve him hand and foot. And I remember, you know, just knowing, this is pre-internet. I'd never even seen Bhakti Tirtha Swami before. He was this like mythical figure. And I remember when he came to the temple, he is just so physically impressive. You know, he's handsome, he's strong, he's got such a powerful presence. It's just incredible. He walks into the room and you're just like, wow. I remember thinking that, like he walked into the temple room. And then he sat down and he gave class. And he gave one of the most powerful classes. He was such a powerful speaker. He was so revolutionary. We all just loved him. And then afterwards, he did the kirtan. And, you know, a lot of people are saying how he jumps. And anybody that's ever seen Bhakti Tirtha Swami in class, he's got this just beautiful smile on his face. He's jumping 6 feet in the air. And he was just so charismatic and so wonderful that we just instantly fell in love with him. And he came back to Philadelphia many, many, many times. Eventually he came back into ISKCON. And it was just so wonderful just having a devotee like that, coming to our temple regularly. So one time we were on tour with Shelter. And so we had known Bhakti Tirtha Swami from Philadelphia, and we were playing in DC at this club called the Safari Club, which is in the middle of the ghetto. Like anytime we would play there, our van would get broken into. It was just like a terrible neighborhood. But we invited Bhakti Tirtha Swami anyway, because we wanted him to come to the show. And we didn't know if he was going to come or not. And it was actually a huge show. If anybody knows about hardcore, we played with this band Earth Crisis at the time. We're like a gigantic vegan hardcore band, and Shelter was the Krishna core band. So it was a huge show, completely oversold out. And Shelter was just getting ready to play. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami wasn't there. We just figured he wasn't going to come. And so if anybody's ever seen Shelter, we have this intro tape with the Sri Upanishad, and it's very dramatic. And so we're playing this, we're about to go on. And the front door, and the club is just packed. You can't even walk in this club. And the front door opens, and there's Bhakti Tirtha Swami with his hat, and he's got his silk, like super orange robes, and he's got his Nashringadev cane. And he's just got such a presence that all these like tattooed hardcore guys, they take one look at him and the sea just parts. And like it just opens up, and a walkway opens up all the way to the stage. And we're just about to go on. So he kind of like walks in, and he walks up onto the stage. He's on the side of the stage. We immediately went over, we paid our obeisances to him. And then we basically just had to play. So he was sitting at the side of the stage, and I don't know if anybody's been to a hardcore show, especially like a really great hardcore show. We started playing the song Message of the Bhagavat, and the place just went bananas. People are stage diving, people are moshing, people are crowd surfing. There's a gigantic pile up on the stage of people trying to sing along on the mic. And it was just one of those just absolutely bonkers shows. And the whole time I was just thinking, oh my God, what does Bhakti Tirtha Swami think of what's happening right now? So after the show, he left early. He went back to iFast, and we were staying with him. So we went back there a little later. He had already gone to sleep. And so we woke up the next morning, and he wanted to have a meeting with us. And it was just like, oh my God. Because at the time, Shelter was very polarizing in ISKCON. A lot of people are like, these punk rockers are not representing Prabhupada properly. They should be stopped at all costs. And then there was other people that were a little bit more progressive, Gunagraya Maharaj, that actually championed the band and saw that people were becoming devotees and people were getting into Krishna because of the band. And so they liked what we were doing, but we didn't know where Bhakti Tirtha Swami kind of stood, like which side of the line he was on. So he calls us into his office, and he goes, I just want you to know that I completely endorse what you're doing. He said, you guys are, what did he say? He said it was like spiritual espionage, he said. And he goes, I do the same exact thing in Africa. He said, I'm thinking of how can I build a bridge to people and bring people to Krishna? So I'll dress unconventionally, I'll do unconventional things. People couldn't wrap their heads around it, but I understood that this is how I'm going to build a bridge to bring people to Krishna and pluck them out of the material world. And I can see that you guys are doing the exact same thing. You have some influence in this punk scene, and people are becoming devotees, and people are singing along to Message of the Bhagavat, and people are buying books. And I just thought it was the most amazing experience, and I love what you guys are doing. And he opens up his desk, and he pulls out this big checkbook, and he writes us a check for $1,000, which like $1,000 in 1996 1996 or 1997. It was like a ton. It was the biggest donation we ever got. And we said, Maharaj, we can't accept your money. We should be giving you donations. You're a sannyasi. He goes, no. He goes, I want you guys to accept this as a token of my support. And I want you to tell everybody that I gave you this check for $1,000. Because he just wanted people to know that he was on our side and he supported us. And it was such a wonderful experience. And he was so loving and he was so kind to us that, he instantly just kind of like won over our hearts. And so it was a really, really nice experience. I have a couple of more stories, but maybe I'll save them for next year. Are we out of time? No bell?
I was afraid to ring the bell.
All right. So at the time, I did a fanzine that was called War on Illusion. And basically, it was like, fanzines were big in the punk scene, we'd just write about music and stuff like that. But I was like, okay, fanzines are big in the punk scene. I want to preach Krishna consciousness. I'm going to do a Krishna conscious fanzine. And so it was popular, and I wanted to interview him for the fanzine. So after we had that meeting with him, I asked him if I could interview him. And I literally got to spend about 5 hours with him alone in his office. And it was just, to this day, it's one of the most amazing experiences that I've had in Krishna consciousness. He's such, if anybody, maybe some of you can back me up on this. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, besides being an amazing devotee, is super mystical. Anybody ever notice that? He's super mystical. And at the time, we're on tour. Everybody knows Raghunath is the singer for Shelter. Me and Raghunath were just at each other's throats the whole entire tour. I won't go into the details, but you know how it is. You're just on tour and we're like brothers and we're just fighting the whole time. And somehow or other, Bhakti Tirtha Swami goes, why are you and Raghunath fighting so much? And I swear to God, I went to everybody in the band, all of our roadies. I was like, did anybody tell Bhakti Tirtha Swami that me and Raghunath were fighting? And everybody said no. Somehow or other, he mystically knew that me and Raghunath were like fighting. And he goes, you guys are the leaders of this whole thing, and you have to have a united front. And when you're fighting all the time in front of other people, it's such a bad look. It's such bad preaching. And then he said this, which was so mystical. He said, I know what you and Raghunath were in your past life. And he said, both of you are from the heavenly planets, but you're from the heavenly planets in two totally different scenarios. He said, Raghunath was in the heavenly planets because he had a desire to control. So he was on a heavenly planet. He was a big controller. He developed that samskara where he just wanted to, be able to manipulate people and control people. And he said, you have to tell Raghunath that Krishna is the supreme controller. And if he wants to control, he's got to get in line with Krishna, because when he does that, his controlling propensity is perfected. But when he does it for his own ego, that's when he goes off the rails. Tell Raghunath. Tell Raghunath. So, of course, I did tell Raghunath later. And then he said to me, he goes, you're also from the heavenly planets, but you're from the heavenly planets because you wanted to enjoy. And so your problem is when you came back down to earth, because you have that samskara where you think that everything should be nice and the world should revolve around you, that when the world goes opposite your desires, you can't take it. And when he said that, I was like, wow. And then he goes, but Paramananda, you have to learn something. And then you ever have this experience where somebody says something to you and it's like a thunderbolt and it just goes straight into your heart? He said this to me. He said, Paramananda, You should be willing to go to hell to preach Krishna consciousness. And when you're standing in front of a man who, without a shadow of a doubt, would follow Prabhupada to hell to help him preach, without a doubt, when you're standing in front of a man that has that kind of conviction and he says that to you, it just went straight into my heart. And even to this day, I always remember that. I should be willing to go to hell to help bring other people to, to Krishna consciousness. It's the exact opposite mentality of the enjoying mentality. So that was also a very, very big experience in my life that I still remember to this day. And I interviewed him for my fanzine, and that interview became one of the most popular things that came out in that issue. And I just went back and I reread it today, and it's absolutely amazing. What a fearless, strong, revolutionary preacher he was. So that's my story. All glories to Bhakti Tirtha.
Haribo, thank you very much for that wonderful story, wonderful pastimes. Now, I was afraid to ring the bell for Ekadashi. She went over time, but I've always been afraid of her. But please keep in mind that there's a virtual bell, okay? But anyway, we'd like to welcome Advaita Prabhu and Arjuna to the stand for some offering. Put your hands together.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Swami, Swataram Krishna Puja. This was the Prana mantra composed and offered by, at that time, still His Grace Krishna Kshetra Prabhu, now Swami. And it reads, I offer my humble obeisances to His Holiness, to the dark yet brilliant cloud of mercy, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Oh Master, you are the true visionary who expands the ocean of service. Who is never satisfied to be liberated by himself. His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami, who is never satisfied to be liberated by himself. O Master, you are the true visionary, seeing the way to expand the ocean of devotion. Your magnanimous heart is a veritable holy place of the Lord's transcendental pastimes. So it was 1996 when I heard your voice for the first time. And it was, I think, Mayapur, Navadvip Mandal Parikram. And Jayapataka Maharaj was there. It was one of those like small mini cassettes, those mini tapes. And I was just on a public transport on the way to do some copy. Yeah, we did some zines as well. There was some zine in my hometown in Split, Croatia. Just to do the errands, do some copies, and that's when I heard his voice. And Jayapataka Maharaj introduced him. It was in one of the stops, the courtyard of Chankazi. And he just went like, the introduction was very escalating. So he went, who can stop the Sankirtan movement? And then everybody said, nobody. Who can stop the Sankirtan movement? Nobody. So each time he said that, it just went like for the couple of notches higher. Who can stop the Sankirtan movement? Nobody. So it just built up like that. And he was so like, it was grabbing my soul. And I said, I never felt anybody, it's not what he was saying, but how he was saying. As they say, it's never what we say and what we do, but it's how we make others feel, right? That's the core of the preaching. So I never felt anybody really cared that much. And I heard Prabhupada's teachings before from many wonderful, great stalwarts, Srila Prabhupada's disciples. But that attached file of care was the strongest at that time when I heard his voice, and I was done. I was done, and I was his. And Krishna arranged later on that we meet also. I'll just share a quick story. It's a long, over 10-year chapter in my life, living in Gitanagari, serving the cows in the same barn that Paramananda also was serving, but some years before me. One day we went on a bike ride. He really liked these activities, outdoor activities. Again, the word is unconventional. And he called for bikes, and then Bali Maharaj, he would fix as many bikes as possible. They were usually kind of laying around. He would fix them. Mismatched tires, doesn't matter. As long as it goes, we go. So we were going, and some people, I think from Chicago, were visiting, the whole family. They had a camper, a couple of kids, devotees. And they were visiting, walking around the farm. So they were on that road, that first road that you come towards the barn. So they were walking and looking, and we're on our way out. I think Mother Taruni was there. You were there, right? I think your bike went off the ditch, right?
Yes, because I would not let Karnation win. And it was a bend, and I'm not good on bends. And I went full speed, flew into the...
Yeah, that was funny, but also concerning. I was like, is Mother Taruni all right? But here we go. So I'm driving. I put his helmet on before we started. So we're driving. He's has a helmet on, has his orange coveralls, and we're all driving like a gang of bikers. So it's like Maharaj with like 20 other devotees, and we're driving, trying to exit the farm and just go around the neighborhood. And this family is just looking. And I noticed they're looking, and they're like, jaw drop. And then he turned to me. I was driving next to me. He turned to me. He said, so we're passing by them, and I'm noticing like they're like totally, what is the word, flabbergasted? And then he turned to me. As soon as we kind of passed them, he turned to me and to a few others around that were driving close by. He said, they're probably thinking, what kind of guru is this? And I'm going to be, there's more, but I'm going to just conclude with something that I reflected on recently. And what appears to me, it's of all the things that he has said and all the things that he has written and all the instructions that he has given individually to many of us, seems like these 8 instructions are the core and a heart of his message. And I dare to say that it's His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's Shikshashtakam. So we all know for 4 principles of community building. Okay, let's just go over them and then I'll pass it on to Arjuna. Just so, if you didn't know what his teachings are or what he's all about, I think these 4, along with 4 principles of balance, or balanced life, will give you the idea. So the 4 principles of community building is: treat everyone you encounter as if the success or failure of your spiritual life depends on the quality of your interactions with them. So that is everyone, not just this devotee or that devotee that I like. This is a tall order. 2, think of the person you love the most and aspire to treat everyone with that same quality of love. So this number 2 will help us, or should help us, with number 1. 3, view all conflicts as your own fault first. And 4, realize that people in your present environment might very well be the people with whom you will live out your life and who are likely to be with you at the time of death. So this is on dependence. And 4 principles of balance. 1, place more emphasis on having loving Vaishnava relationships. See all interactions as a cry for love or extension of love. 2, go the extra mile to care for and protect women and children. The Bhagavatam mentions that when elders, brahmanas, cows, women and children are not protected, not only does the individual who does not protect them suffer, but the entire community suffers. 3, keep healthy balance between spiritual and material life, but make sure second supports the first. And putting things in perspective, the last one, remain loyal to Srila Prabhupada's movement, but do not be sectarian. We are to remain loyal to Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, but to respect all the Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.
So just for the sake of time, I'm just going to jump straight in. Cowback, instead of using the word piggyback, I'll cowback off of as everyone who's already spoken about the Tirtha Maharaj's qualities, I'm going to share in a way that it's not about me, but it's more about what he imparted in me. So I was born in the movement, West Virginia. So I'm just going to do like timestamps. So I was born in the era of Kṛṣṇa Swami. Fast forward, all the things that happened as a little boy there. Fast forward, I go to back home to Detroit.